What's up, guys? I'm Isaac here at Tobacco Road Harley-Davidson, and I have your new bike of the week, this 2024 Harley-Davidson CVO Pan America. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, this is probably one of my favorite motorcycles in the 24 lineup. Now, the Harley-Davidson Pan America Special, that's a bike that's already loaded down with most everything you could want. Now, you can watch one of our other videos to see all the features that the Harley-Davidson Pan Americas come with and some of the updates that were made on the 2024s, like the bigger battery and the updated charging system. Now, those bikes, they're loaded down. 150 horsepower, Rev Max motor, center stand, engine guards, most everything you could want on them, except luggage and a couple of other items that we're going to talk about on this one. Now, you step it up a notch, and then you have the CVO Pan America. The first time the Pan America's been on the CVO lineup, and first time a Rev Max motor's been a CVO, and this thing is decked out. I think the only thing this bike doesn't have on it is an exhaust, which also makes sense because there are a lot of different exhaust options out there. Now, the Screaming Eagle pipe that comes on these, I really like that one. That's kind of that right mellow tone. It's not way too loud where if you're going to be riding down a trail or something like that, it's not going to be too annoying out there. It complements the bike pretty well. Sounds really good. Unfortunately, I don't have one that you can hear right now, but really like that pipe. But there are a lot of really good different pipe options for these bikes. So makes sense not to have that pipe on it, so that way, you know, you have free range to put whatever you want on. But this bike is loaded down. Now, one of the biggest concerns people are going to have, particularly Pan America riders or ADV riders that are looking for a Pan America, they're like, why would I want to take a CVO off-road? Well, A, you don't have to, but also it's really so much more than just the paint job on this. I mean, and the paint job is really just the final touch on it to really hone it in as a CVO. So the first thing that we're going to talk about are the big items that most people really want to see. So the first thing you're going to be seeing right here is going to be the luggage. So all the Harley-Davidson Pan Americas right now, they don't, from the factory, they're not going to have the luggage. Again, because there's so many different options to put on it. And a lot of people are really going to just set up their Pan America for their type of riding. You know, if you're really not going to touch any pavement, well, yeah, if you're really not going to touch any pavement and you really want to lean hard into that off-road style, then maybe the soft bags are going to be what you want. Or on the other hand, if you really want to go stick to that ADV bike look and you want the hard pannier style aluminum cases, then you've got those options. You want to really ride this bike as sort of a sport tour and throw the sport cases on, the clamshell bags, which those are another set of really cool bags I like to see on these bikes. But this bike went ahead and came with the black aluminum side cases and the top case, and the top case does already have the little pad here for your passenger. So it is set up for passenger, so passenger can sit up nice and high right here. They've got the little seat cushion for them. They've got foot pegs. They have little handles on that is already on the Pan America they can hold on to a little bit, or they can kind of hold on to the side cases. But they do have a nice backrest here, so your passenger is locked in on this bike just as much as you are. On the other hand, if you're not going to have a passenger, look at how much room you have to throw even more luggage on this bike. And with these panniers, you can strap luggage on, and there's so much room to hook bungees and other straps on, so you could, you know, if you're going camping, put all your gear in this box, light gear in that one, other gear in that one. You can probably fit a smaller helmet inside this one, it looks like. And then you can put luggage in here and then, you know, have your tent strapped to the top of it if you want it. So you've got tons of options with this setup. Next thing we're going to talk about is the skid plate. Probably one of the biggest things that people have concerns about with the Pan Americas is where the rectifier or the battery charging system is located. Now, on most Harley-Davidsons, it's traditionally been right up here behind the front wheel. And for most riders, for most touring and, you know, on the Softails, Dyna, stuff like that, that's not a bad spot. It works out pretty well. But for the ADV bikes particularly, you know, you're going to be doing any sort of obstacles and jumping and that sort of thing. A lot of people are concerned about it getting tore up right there. So This one has the Harley-Davidson skid plate, and this is the one for the 24s, obviously, because it is a 24. That is a little bit bigger to accommodate for that little bit bigger battery down here too. Because that's actually where your battery's stored too. Is it going to be tucked up right here, right underneath the radiator? But you do have the little wings for the rectifier right there too. And what this skid plate does is covers the whole thing. So it has holes so air can still get to it. It can still stay a little bit cooler, but it's a little bit more protected by that beefier skid plate that's actually covering the fins. Another really great feature is the painted subframe. So of course the paint is an incredible work on this bike. I mean, you've got the red, it's actually a legendary orange, so it's a little more orange than red. It's almost kind of like a tangerine, but legendary orange is of course what we're gonna call it. But it's very reddish orange, so it looks very sharp. And then you've got this black with this heavy flake all throughout. And then you have the 25th anniversary decals on this bike too, on the center console and up here on the front fairing, showing that this bike is part of the 25th anniversary of the CVOs. Because while last year was the 120th anniversary of Harley-Davidson, 2024 is the 25th anniversary of the CVO line, or the custom vehicle operations, of the top trim levels of these bikes as you can get. But with that pretty nice paint job, you also have painted subframes on this bike. So you have the painted engine guards right here, you have the subframe there on the rear you see, and then also the little brush guard up here on the front. And as an added touch, it does match pretty well with the coil that's going over the rear suspension that's kind of tucked up underneath there. So this bike is, and then with the ADV tires, that's a little bit more off-road oriented, then, you know, it looks very aggressive with that, and the black cases really make this bike look sharp. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the other features that I think you're really going to want to see on this bike. So starting up at the front, like I said, it is that off-road style tire, but it is still a little more road oriented than off-road oriented, because that's what you're probably going to do with this bike. It's going to spend more time on the road, but you want to hit the gravel forest road, hit a little shortcut every now and then. It's going to be plenty capable for that, and the suspension is going to handle that really well, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, the Harley-Davidson Pan Americas also come with two different wheel options. They're going to have the cast wheel option, or they're going to have the spokes. Now, the CVO does already come with the spokes because they're going to be a little bit stronger, and again, so they're going to be a little bit more off-road oriented. Cool thing with these spokes is that they're actually spoked to the outside of the rim, so that way you can still run a tubeless tire on this bike. So that's a really nice feature. You can still keep tubeless tires on it, but you also get the advantages of spokes. And on this wheel, you do have dual rotors up on the front. It is a radial Brembo. It is a radial Brembo caliper on each side, as well as a master cylinder up top. And then what we're looking at is the electronic suspension. So this bike has electronic suspension on the front and the rear. So it's also adaptive. So it's gonna kind of learn the conditions and help prepare itself for the kind of riding you're doing. Now, the cool part about the electronic suspension is that you can get it dialed in based on the ride modes you're doing. So you can put it in sport mode, and it's going to give you a little bit sportier suspension. It's going to tighten it up a little bit, and it's going to make it a little bit better for that little bit more aggressive riding there in the curves. You want to have it in road mode, get a good balance of it for just general touring. It's going to be comfortable on the highway, but it's also going to be stiff enough that when you get on it, it's going to be ready for you. Then you can put it on off-road mode, which is going to be, of course, a little bit more soft, so it's going to be able to absorb all those bumps and holes on the terrain that you're going to encounter. So it's a really great setup. And the suspension also is part of the adaptive ride height system, which is also included on this motorcycle. So of course, one of the biggest issues people have with ADV bikes is how tall they are. So a little bit shorter riders, they're going to feel a lot less comfortable on these bikes because they are a little bit taller. But the adaptive ride height and the various seat options are going to help those riders quite a bit. So as you're coming to a stop, the suspension will lower itself a little bit, so that way a rider like me, 5'10", can easily flat foot this motorcycle. So then behind the front wheel, now what we're looking at is we do have that beefier skid plate like I was talking about. Then you do have the guard for the radiator, so any rocks that get kicked up, it's going to help protect that a little bit easier. You've got the painted engine guards, and then you do have these fog lights. These fog lights do have a lot of different settings on them, so you can run them as fog lights, or just running lights, or you can run them as spotlights. But while we're talking about the lighting, it is LED lighting all the way around, so right above those you do have the directional lights. You do have this very bright headlight, that's your base light, and it has this nice little trim around it too, which is really going to give it a little bit better stance and is also going to make the bike more visible to other riders. And then above that, you have the adaptive headlight too. So as you lean this bike in a curve, it's going to shoot that light it's going to sense how far you're leaning the bike and which direction. It's going to shoot that light into the direction of that curve. So, I mean, you've got the lighting you have on the front of this bike is pretty incredible, as is most of the options and most of the things you have up here. So, next up, it's down too long. All right, next up, what we got? Then we have the adjustable windshield. So easy adjustment. You can do it with the left hand since your right hand's probably gonna be on the throttle most of the time. You just reach in, squeeze it, and drop it down low. You get a little bit more wind on you. Like today, it's a little bit hotter. I might want some of that wind, but long highway riding, go ahead and drop that down. That's about as tall as it'll go. There are various windshield options as well, but nice and easy to adjust there for you for sure. Then on the right side, you actually have a USB-C charger, so you can just plug your phone into that, wrap it around the bar, and then go ahead and mount your phone up here. But if you're not sure where you're gonna put your phone, this bike comes with a phone holder too. Coming up the bars, same controls as you've had before on the other Pan Americas, but there are new grips on this one. These are the tactical CVO grips, and probably one of my favorite grips too. They're a little bit wider than the ones that we found on the Pan America Special, which I noticed after riding that bike, spending a lot of time on that bike, my hand would cramp up just a little bit because I'm used to a little bit bigger grips on some of the other bikes, but these are just right, just the right amount of grip to them, and they work out great. Then coming on back, between you and those bars are gonna be this 5.6 gallon tank. So it's gonna be plenty of range for any long trips, which is gonna be particularly important for where you're gonna wanna take this bike. So you're gonna wanna take it to some of those more remote spots on longer trips that gas stations are gonna be a little bit more spread out. So 5.6 gallon tank and a pretty decent fuel economy, depending on how you're riding it. But it's gonna really help you out with that, and you're gonna be able to get pretty far on this motorcycle. Then you do already have the knee pads on this bike, so you can really lock yourself into this bike and really hold on to it, especially when you're standing while you're riding. And we do have a little bit of carbon accents all over on this thing too. And then moving right on back, you do have a few more guards here. You have the muffler guard, you have the guard over the Brembo cylinder. Another thing I really like about these, pretty much everything, anything on a motorcycle, especially one that's going to be beat on as hard as this bike, I hate to use the word unbreakable, but they're designed with a lesser chance of breaking. And what I'm talking about are these brake levers. So your rear brake lever, what you can do with that is it pivots there. So if the bike were to fall over, instead of this just snapping off, it has a little bit more flex in it. Then on the other side, the shift lever is going to be the same way. It's going to be able to fold, so that way if the bike tips over, that's going to be able to fold out of the way instead of snapping. So it's just one less thing you have to worry about in case you drop this bike. Then behind that's the center stand. So it's got the easy access right here. So I'm not gonna put it on the center stand for you, but I'll show you here. So you gotta get it locked in right there, and then it's just an easy, just push rock back like that. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna give you that show today, but I can just easily put it back on this kickstand, and the kickstand in which does have the larger base pad. So if you go park it in the grass, it's gonna give it a much lesser chance of sinking into the grass some. So, which of course, then you have the center stand forward, but it's just one more thing to help you out there. And like I said, you're set up for the passenger because of their seat and your seat. This is a super nice CVO seat. Just the right amount of grip on it. This beautiful red piping on it. This is a cool seat. And it's one of the seats, like I said, you can lock into 2 different positions based on your height. And then these bags. These are really great bags. Tons of space in these things, so you can really load them down. And I do have the key fob here. So again, this bike is wireless entry, so you have this key, so you can just go ahead and so long it's proximity key, so if you stand close enough to it, then that way it's gonna let you turn it on. So you just put it in your riding jacket and then not have to worry about it until you need this key. Then you have this key. This is a little bit smaller key that is keyed for the bag. So what you can do with this one is you can unlock, or you can open the bags with it, and you can also use it to take the bags off. But you actually don't need any hardware to take this bag off. What you can do is you can unbolt it right there, grab each side, lift up just like that. So then you can, if this bike, it's got a little carrying handle too. It's not really a carrying handle, but it's where you can strap stuff to. But you can take this bag off super easy, just like that. And it's got that lock on it, so that way nobody can take this bag off without unlocking it. So I'll put that back on right there. You just line it up, drop it in, get it set, lock it, and you are ready to go. But like I was saying, you do have to use the key to open these bags. So plus side, you can't forget your keys are in here. You can't drive off with the keys back here, and you can't accidentally lock the keys inside the bag. So you do have to use them each time to unlock it, to open it. So the bags are always going to be locked. So, which is again another little benefit. So there's never any. You get inside somewhere and you're like, oh my gosh, should I lock my motorcycle up? You don't have to worry about that. And we'll go ahead and show you some of the CVO features this bike comes with. So, a little top case too. I think you could fit a helmet in here. It's pretty good. So this bike is going to come with a toolkit specifically for the Rev Max. It's also going to come with a little cover here for you. And it's going to come with a soft duffel tail bag. So the CVOs are always known for coming with some nice little features, and you're going to have that little duffel bag too, so you can have even more luggage space on this bike. Nice part about the top case is you can just take the saddlebags off and then just run this bike with the top case if you want. That way you don't have to worry about having the mailboxes on either side, because they are massive, but they do give you a lot of space. I do know I was able to fit a smaller helmet in this side once before. Just did squeeze in here, but it was able to fit. And again, this is also a 22-pound limit. So go ahead and close that for you. But this is the video for the 2024 Harley-Davidson CVO Pan America. And so again, there's so much more stuff we could go into on this bike, but that was a lot. And I'm out of breath now. But that was a lot, and there's so much on this bike, and it's just such a good all-around motorcycle to go ride. Yeah, so here it is. If you want to know more about it, you have one already, you'll love it, tell us about it. Drop some questions or comments in the comments. And in the meantime, ride safe, and we hope to see you out here soon.